Hello and welcome to GameSack. This time around we're talking about games that we really want to see a new sequel for.
Yeah, games that have been around that we really like and, God, they just deserve more love. We want more of them.
Yeah, and these aren't necessarily games that were overlooked and, they may have had a few sequels in the past, but, they don't really get any attention from the original companies anymore. And, we want to see these series be revisited.
Yeah, and some of them on a current generation system. I'd love to see some graphical upgrades for some of these games.
Well, why can't they just be sequels on the Super Nintendo and Genesis?
Because that'll never happen.
Yeah, that's true.
I would have loved to see that happen, but no.
It's not going to happen. Anyway, first up is a game that obviously I really want to see a sequel for, so check it out. Streets of Rage definitely needs a fourth game in the series. The games were only ever released on the Genesis, and they're some of the best beat-em-ups ever. The first game really surprised a lot of people by being much better than Final Fight was on the Super Nintendo. Plus, it had amazing music by Yuzo Koshiro at a time when most people were saying how much better the Super Nintendo's sound was. Overall, it's a fantastic game that they were somehow able to squeeze into a paltry 4 megabits. I mean, think about it, the game code is the same size as Altered Beast, and that game is like super short. But Streets of Rage 2 upped the memory to 16 mega power. This wasn't too long after Street Fighter 2 was released on the Super Nintendo with the same amount of memory. But it really does help the game. Everything is so much bigger and much more detailed than it was before. Even the sound quality is better and most of the music is better as well. Honestly, this is my favorite Streets of Rage game. There's many more locations and things you need to fight through. It might be a bit easy for some people, but I don't care, it's just fun to play. Then Streets of Rage 3 came around and it was 50% bigger than Part 2. Unfortunately, as a game, I think it's about 50% worse. Most of the music pretty much now sucks, and for some reason the graphics seem to have worse color to them as well. It's still a fun game, but they kinda messed up the US version's difficulty by making it a touch too hard, and they even botched up the translation of the story. Not like that really matters much in a fighting game. They also took out this guy who was in the Japanese version because America just wasn't ready. Proper Streets of Rage sequels have been attempted a few times, even by the original creators, and Sega has always made sure that those projects never got very far at all. There's been some fan-made Streets of Rage games out there, and even one you can play on the Dreamcast, but I think it's time for a proper one.
Okami was released on the PlayStation 2 in 2006. From the first moment that I saw pictures of this game in magazines and the internet, I was floored at the beauty of the graphics. After reading about the game and how it played, I knew I had to have it. And you know what? I wasn't disappointed one bit. It took me about 40 hours to beat the game on my initial playthrough, and I was left wanting more. As you can see, the game's cel-shaded graphics are just beautiful. The whole game looks like a work of art, and you just want to stop in certain areas and admire the beauty. So the story in a nutshell is that the god Orochi, who was once defeated, was released once again from his captivity and has sapped the life out of every living thing. You play the part of another god, Amaterasu, and must bring back life to the land by reviving these guardian saplings and then defeat Orochi again in the end. I could watch the cutscenes of life coming back into the land endlessly, as it's just a thing of beauty, and you know what? It makes me feel all warm inside. The game plays like an action RPG. You have to find zodiac signs, which in turn are like demigods that will give you powers. You use these powers in battle and also in the overworld. This is where people complain about this game. Once you learn a new brush technique, you use it by pausing the action and draw on the screen with your celestial brush. I find it really cool, and I don't think it detracts from the action at all. You can see enemies on screen, and for the most part choose to run by them or you can engage them. The battles are really fun, and you use normal attacks and the celestial brush to help you uncover weak spots and destroy them. The music is a huge part of this game, and as you can hear, it's very Japanese in flavor. I really couldn't think of a better style of music for this game. The control is pretty good. Every now and again you'll have problems with the camera and maybe the celestial brush, but it's totally forgivable. Just like most action RPG games, there's lots to do and even some side quests. This game needs a sequel badly. The DS got a decent sequel, but I'm talking about a proper sequel on the PS3 or even PS4. Clover Studios, who made this game, are no longer around, but I can dream, right?
I think a lot of people will agree that Shining Force could use a new installment. And I mean a real one, not a watered down offshoot or something like that. And I want it released over here in English as well. It all began back in 1993 on the Sega Genesis. This is a tactical RPG and probably one of the best ones ever made. You get to explore towns and manage things similar to most other RPGs, but the fun really lies in the battles. The way the battles work is that each character has a limited amount of space he or she can move. If you put them near an enemy, you can choose to attack them. The enemies all have limits of their own and they function in the same way. And every character is different in regards to how far and often they can move in addition to what kind of attacks they can perform. For example, some characters only attack when right next to an enemy, but others need to be a space away since they operate using projectile attacks. Characters can also heal each other and use magic and all that cool stuff. In the beginning of the game, your headquarters only has a small handful of people for your army. But later on, this warehouse is pretty much completely full of fighters. You can't take them all though, so you need to pick and choose the ones you want to use. The story works out well enough, but the battles are extremely addicting, and I am not kidding. It's a good thing too, because some of these battles can take upwards of half an hour to finish. The graphics are fairly basic for the most part, but there are lots of different backgrounds and enemies, which all look pretty cool. Shining Force 2 came out in 1994, and it kicked ass as well. It's now easier to talk to people in towns without having to go through a few steps of the menu. The graphics are certainly a lot brighter and more colorful, and I like the music a lot better as well. Gameplay wise, it's pretty much the same for the most part. The battle scenes are still really cool. If you or an enemy do a long distance attack, you get a quick scrolling effect as the weapon flies to its target. So is it better than the original Shining Force? Aesthetically, yes, it definitely is, but as a game, I wouldn't necessarily say it's better, but it's still insanely awesome. Shining Force CD for the Sega CD is basically just 16-bit ports of the Game Gear Shining Force games. The first quest takes place 20 years after the original Shining Force game.
The story begins 20 years after.
This entire CD is pretty much pure battles. Instead of large towns to navigate, you now have a single screen where you have your camp and your shop options. Thankfully, the battles are just as addicting as previous games, and the music is awesome. The box says that there are 4 complete role-playing adventures, and they each have their very own save file. But you're going to need the backup RAM cart in order to play the third story, as you'll need completed save files from the first 2 to unlock it, and there's not enough room in the Sega CD's internal memory for all 3 saves. And to play the fourth story, you gotta beat the previous 3 as well as find a secret item hidden somewhere in the second story. Sheesh. And of course, we can't leave out Shining Force 3 on the Saturn. This game is now built with 3D polygons. You start off in a giant town, and I actually got lost when I first played the game so many years ago. I was an idiot. Fortunately, most things are still brisk and the battles still work pretty well. You can rotate the camera at any time with the shoulder buttons. The music is fantastic and it's composed by Motoi Sakuraba this time around, and it's all Saturn chiptunes, not streamed off of the disc. The only real complaints I have with the game is that it's tougher to accurately place your character in a spot on the map compared to previous games. That and the characters really like to talk. A lot. Still, it's an amazing game. There were 2 more parts to Shining Force 3 that were never released in English, which makes a proper sequel to these games even more desirable.
If there ever was a war game that needs a sequel, it's gotta be Return Fire. This is the ultimate capture the flag game for the 3DO and PlayStation. This is the PlayStation version here, since I sold my 3DO a long time ago. Your job is to destroy the enemy turrets and make a safe path for your Jeep to find the enemy flag and return it to your base. Basically, to do this, you have 4 types of vehicles at your disposal. A helicopter, which can cover ground fast and is good for reconnaissance. It's got little armor, so it's easily destroyed, but damn is it fun to strafe turrets with this. There's a light tank which is fairly quick and maneuverable and has decent armor. You also have a heavily armored tank truck thing that can take a pretty severe pounding, but you know what, it can also dish out lots of damage and lay mines too. And finally, you have your Jeep, which is the only vehicle that can retrieve the flag. It's fast, but it can get caught up on little things like bushes or rocks, and of course has no armor, so one hit and it's gone. The game is great fun in single player, and the upper levels are crazy hard in this game. They are littered with enemy turrets and drone helicopters. The enemy armies really need to be commended for building crazy stuff like this. You start off with very low offensive force, and you just have to slowly pick your way until you can get to the flag, and this can take hours on the higher levels. The game features a classical soundtrack from such composers as Wagner, Verdi, and Grieg, and you know what? It fits this game perfectly. As you can see, the graphics, while good for the time, aren't so great now. Don't get me wrong, because this doesn't mean the game is unplayable, because it still is, and I like to play it on occasion. The game really shines in two-player mode. It's split screen, but is usually fast and frantic. It's really fun because you're trying to destroy the enemy's defenses and find their flag, while trying to destroy your opponent who is looking for your flag. It's always satisfying when you hear the skull laughing, which means your enemy has lost a piece of its equipment. This game needs a sequel badly. Don't change anything with the controls, vehicles, or presentation. Just give us better visuals, online play, or maybe a 4-player local multiplayer mode. That would be super intense.
Popful Mail for the Sega CD by Working Designs was a really fun action RPG, kind of similar to the later Wonder Boy games. It was designed by Falcom of Ys fame, and I'm really surprised we never saw more games in the series other than this one. The game opens with a cool animated cutscene that shows you, Popful Mail, struggling for cash as a bounty hunter. But you stumble onto a hefty bounty and the game begins. It's a side-scrolling platformer where you level up, buy new items and weapons, and all of that good stuff. It works really well, at least once you get used to the controls. They're slightly slippery and your character runs a touch too close to the edge of the screen for my taste, making it a bit difficult to react to the monsters that suddenly appear on screen. You eventually meet up with 2 other characters who will join your party. Once they do, you can select them at any time via the menu. But overall, the game is fun and addicting to play, with new challenges that pop up in different areas, like needing spike or stone shoes to keep from slipping around in the ice world. But watch out, because these items don't last forever, so only use them if you really need to. The music may surprise a lot of people since it's mostly generated by the Genesis itself rather than streamed from the CD. It's actually really good for the most part. There's also lots of cheesy voice acting in here as well.
Do you sometimes feel less than fresh? I know I do.
This game was also on the PC Engine CD and the Super Famicom, but this is the only one in English. Falcom loves to make sequels, so the fact that this has none really does surprise me.
All right, Joe, halfway through the show, we've got some really awesome games out there that need sequels. Of course, yours are all Sega-centric. I mean, that's not a big surprise, is it?
Yeah. But, you know, I bet you have a Sega game that you want to see a sequel to. Come on.
I do actually have a series that I would like another sequel to, a good one.
I knew it. Okay, let's see what kind of sequel you want.
Yeah, everybody's going to love it. Everybody loves this series, so.
Okay, let's check it out.
Golden Axe is a series that just begs for a proper sequel. Now let's get this straight right from the top. I'm talking about a sequel to Golden Axe 1, 2, or 3. You'll never hear me say that I want a sequel to Golden Axe The Duel on the Saturn or Golden Axe Beast Rider for the PS3 and Xbox 360. Those games are just trash, period. Golden Axe 1, 2, and 3 and The Revenge of Death Adder are the epitome of great fantasy-style beat-em-ups. The settings are great, like fighting on the back of this large hawk while it flies through the sky. The characters are all really fun to play, and I really don't have a favorite. Well, maybe I like the female warrior a bit more because I like her magic the best. Oh, and look at that ass. She's smoking hot. You also get to ride cool animals like this flame-breathing dragon or this weird parakeet thing. The game boasts some cool enemies like skeletons that are born from the ground and, of course, the memorable boss battles. Probably the best part about these games is the music. It really has a fantasy feel to it that matches the game perfectly. The whole soundtrack is great. Now, if Sega ever did remake this series, I want another hand-drawn sprite-based game. I don't want any of this polygon crap on a 2D plane. To me, that style of game never really seems to turn out great as, the movements just seem crazy, the lag in the controls, it just it doesn't work. I won't hold out hope because I know it's not going to happen, but I can still dream. I'm just a dreamer.
Ow! Ow!
JJ and Jeff was an early game for the TurboGrafx 16. It's a platformer very similar to the first Wonder Boy game or the Adventure Island series. You play as one of two detectives trying to save a very rich person who has been kidnapped. Yeah, I like how that's the only information you even bothered to get before setting off to solve the case. It's your choice who you play as, but the other guy tags along anyway and mostly helps you. But sometimes he throws cans at you. What the hell, dude? You can forget your share of the money. Anyway, like Wonder Boy and Adventure Island, your life meter is constantly depleting. So you need to make sure you grab lots of fruit to keep from dying. Maybe you play as a diabetic who took a bit too much insulin and needs the glucose, who knows. Anyway, when your blood sugar gets too low, you hear this. I don't know why some games insist on having these annoying low-life alarms. It just makes me want to let the character die. Anyway, you can kick as an attack or bounce on top of enemies. Your kick has a pretty short range, so I don't really recommend using it for much. However, you will need to kick random objects to receive coins, fruit, open doors, and reveal platforms to help you progress. So, kick everything that's not an enemy, I guess. You also have a spray can, and that's the only way I know of that you can defeat these things. The control is a little slippery and it takes a bit of time to get used to, but if you choose to play as Jeff, he controls even worse, so don't let the sweet-ass sunglasses fool you. The US version was changed around a bit as the Japanese version is actually based on two comedians from Japan. It's called Kato-chan and Ken-chan, and it has a lot more toilet humor. I mean, check out this dude just taking a leak here. And you know what he's dropping behind these bushes. And to kill these things, you now gotta fart on them instead of spray them. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a fairly immature guy, so yeah, I do like the Japanese version better. But overall, the game offers a lot of challenge, and I think a sequel could really expand on the humor. I was disappointed that I never saw more of these two guys.
Jumping Flash is a long-forgotten hidden gem on the original PlayStation. With the graphical capabilities of the PS3 and soon-to-be PS4, this, in my opinion, should be a no-brainer for a sequel. If you haven't played Jumping Flash or Jumping Flash 2, then here's what it's all about. You are a large mechanical rabbit trying to save the planet from Dr. Aloha. Part 2 has an even more in-depth plot with a huge twist. I won't spoil it for you, even though the story has absolutely no bearing on how the game is played, or even what you have to do to reach the goal of each level. The game is a first-person platformer, and all you have to do is collect 4 moo-moos to spell the word exit, and then you can exit the world. Sounds easy enough, and for the most part it is.
All right!
There is a time limit, and you cannot dilly-dally, which means some of the later levels can be a bit tough because the moo-moos are hidden pretty well. Your robot can jump super high. He can also shoot and fire special weapons once collected. The control of your robot is good, and the sense of height when he jumps feels great. It's a very simple game, but I've always had a great time playing it. As you can see, the graphics are super colorful but are way low on the poly count and look rough around the edges. If Sony, or Exact, who developed the game, should make a sequel, I'd want the game to stay as it is. Very simple with minimal objectives to complete. Don't add a bunch of fetch quests and crap like that just to lengthen the game. All I'd want is a graphical upgrade, new levels, and not much more. Well, maybe a multiplayer battle mode might be cool.
Hello, Axlay sure needs a sequel. We've talked about this a couple of times, and it's a great shooter for the Super Nintendo by Konami. It combines vertically scrolling stages as well as horizontally scrolling stages, kinda like Life Force did. For the most part, it pulls it off really well, though I do like the side-scrolling stages much more. Unfortunately, there's only 6 stages total, but it's tough as balls. Seriously though, check out these cool graphics. Lots of nice color and a few cool effects thrown in there. And we'll mention it again, no, this effect is not Mode 7. Both the Genesis and the TurboGrafx can easily do this. This kick-ass boss right here though is Mode 7. I love this boss. And let's not forget about the brilliant music. In fact, it's done by the same guy, girl, individual who did the Super Castlevania 4 music. There are a few odd things that I don't care for in this game. My main complaint would really be that during most of the overhead stages, when you move left and right, it feels kind of floaty. You're moving, and then when you stop, your ship slowly slides back towards the middle of the screen, making precise control very difficult. Also, here's another one of those annoying low-life alarms. Thanks, I like the game 10 times more now. If they make a sequel, they really should fix this nonsense. While this game may not be the best shooter of the 16-bit era, it's definitely one of the ones that needs a sequel the most. I mean, most of Konami's other popular shooters have had tons of sequels. Why not this one? Oh, and after you defeat the boss on the hardest level, the game says, "See you again at Axley 2. Axley 2, yeah right, we're still waiting, Konami.
The Loco Roco series for the PSP is pretty wacky. I would almost guarantee that I'm the only one that thinks these games need another sequel. The goal of the game is to collect a bunch of crap throughout each level, and you know, I love collecting. Collecting these orange fruit things makes your character bigger and slower. Collecting the purple fruit and the other orange things doesn't affect the gameplay, but it's probably there just for filler and for completion. Also, you can collect these Moi Moi people, which give you pieces to use if you want to build a house in one of the different game modes. The game is far too cute for anyone to really enjoy and to take seriously, but that's what I like about it. So you play this game by tilting the screen with the L and R buttons. And if you're tilting the screen to the right, you're going to be jumping with the L button, and vice versa. The levels are all really colorful and are just fun to play. There's loads of secret areas to find which hide things that you need to collect. As you progress through the levels, you'll encounter enemies that want to eat you, but if you can jump into them, you'll destroy them. The music in this game is, it's just plain strange. It's so happy and sugar-coated it almost makes you sick to your stomach. But I mean this in a good way, because I do enjoy it. The singing in this game is all gibberish, and as I'm playing, I'm wondering what the hell are they going on about? I would never ever listen to this music outside of the game for fear of being laughed at though. I do think this game should get a sequel for the Vita as it's the perfect system for it.
What? Seriously, you want a sequel to Loco Roco? I mean, that's like 2 years old at most or something.
Well, I know, but I still like it and I want some more of it. And I know it's all, you know.
Well, I guess we are all entitled to our opinions, even when they're wrong.
Yes, but, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers, younger nieces, nephews, little kids under 10 want a sequel just like I do.
Okay. I'll give you Loco Roco. That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyway, what are some of the games that you want to see a sequel for? Because there's way more than we talked about that really need sequels. So let us know. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Thank you. Well, you know, Joe, I was going to put a Mario game in here, but as we all know, we get a new Mario game almost every year. And
yeah.
You know what? For the most part, they're all very enjoyable if they're not, you know, more of the same
thing over and over. At least,
Yeah.
you know, Sonic is coming out with a new sequel pretty soon,
Is he?
and this time they're going to get it right. They're totally
Oh,
are.
is that what they said? I
No,
think that's what
no,
they said
no.
about the last like 2 or 3 of them. This time it's going to be fun.
Oh, this
And
time
they
it
really
will be
haven't
fun. Come on, you're going to play as Sonic. It's just going to be wonderful experience.
Yeah,
It's
that's
gonna
the
be
video I've
amazing.
seen. That's a video I've seen is you playing as Sonic, and then when you're going to go buy the game thinking you're going to play the whole thing as Sonic, and then guess what? Level 2 through 5 is going to be you playing all of his friends like Amy and that big fat cat or something like that.
Fine,
You know,
fine.
right? Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
mhm. I'll just wait for my next Mario game. So.
Well, at least John Madden keeps improving.